A major step has been taken at the coalition of the Willing Summit in Paris. 26 countries have formally pledged to provide post-war security guarantees for Ukraine. These commitments include deploying an international reassurance force across land, sea and air once the war is over, designed to deter future aggression, not to engage in combat. French President Emmanuel Macron emphasized, the day of the war stops, the security guarantees will be deployed. This multinational force will send a strong message of continued Western support for Kyiv's long-term sovereignty. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy welcomed the initiative as the first concrete step toward a durable peace, endorsing Ukraine's need for tangible, reliable security assurance. Meanwhile, there is renewed focus on the role of the United States. Macron noted that the U.S. contributions to these guarantees are expected to be finalized soon, following a call involving President Donald Trump, European leaders, and President Zelenskyy. Putin threatens European troops before they even arrive. European leaders have not yet deployed any army to Ukraine, but dictator Putin is already threatening them. Speaking at the Eastern Economic Forum, the Russian dictator said that if foreign soldiers were ever sent to Ukraine, they would become legitimate military targets. His remarks come just days after 26 nations in Paris pledged post-war security guarantees for Kyiv, including plans for multinational force once the fighting ends. Some argue Ukraine doesn't need security guarantees. Former Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba has said that instead of vague guarantees, Ukraine needs weapons and deeper integration with the West. Writing in the Washington Post, he argued that foreign troops on Ukrainian soil would be politically impossible for most European leaders because, as he put it, the idea of putting boots on the ground is an electoral nightmare. Kuleba insists the answer lies in large-scale weapons deliveries, factories producing arms inside Ukraine, and commitments to bring the country into the European Union. He also called for stronger air defense and permission for Ukraine to strike inside Russia. He concluded that only real military power, backed by political integration, will make Ukraine secure, not empty promises.
But even if Ukraine, the rest of Europe and the United States manage to build this new security architecture and present it to Russia as a fact on the ground, that will be only the first stage. The next must be far more grueling: direct negotiations between Ukraine and Russia on how the two countries will coexist in the long term. Only through such talks can the mission of securing Ukraine, and by extension Europe, be considered successful.
Putin continues to mock peace talks with Ukraine. The Russian dictator says Moscow would be the best place for a possible meeting with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Putin claimed Russia would give full security guarantees if Zelenskyy came to the Russian capital, yet he also admitted there was little point in talks, insisting agreement on key issues was impossible. President Zelenskyy replied that Putin made the offer precisely because he knew it would never happen. He said Russia is not serious about peace, but repeated he is ready to meet if real negotiations take place. Several international leaders, including those in Austria, Hungary, Switzerland, and Belarus, have suggested their countries could host such a summit. In Ukraine, soldiers are turning to ground robots to save lives on the front line. Inside an old Soviet warehouse near Donetsk, engineers are welding and rewiring machines that can carry supplies, ammunition, and even evacuate the wounded under fire. A Ukrainian commander says most of these robots are built thanks to volunteers and donations. Each one has to be modified to withstand Russian jamming, making them more reliable but also more costly. These machines are already proving their worth, moving into trenches and danger zones where vehicles and soldiers would be too exposed. They are keeping troops alive in a war where drones cause the majority of casualties. It is a technological race. Russia is working on its own versions of ground robots. However, in Ukraine, commanders believe the future of this war may depend on who adapts more quickly. Europe plays long game with Trump over Ukraine. European leaders welcomed Donald Trump's efforts to end the war in Ukraine quickly, but according to the New York Times, they remain deeply skeptical that such a deal is realistic. As hopes for a fast peace fade, Europe's strategy is to keep Trump on their side. Leaders are working to convince him that Putin is the one blocking progress. Thursday's coalition of the Willing Summit in Paris was part of that effort. US officials have spoken about supposed concessions from Moscow, yet in practice, Putin still refuses to commit to direct talks with President Zelenskyy. Analysts say European leaders never believed such a meeting would happen, since Putin does not even recognize Ukraine as a country. Instead, they are using his refusal to push Washington toward tougher sanctions if he won't negotiate. Experts also point out that building a full plan of security guarantees before any talks begin could strengthen Kyiv's position.
For Ukraine to end this war, they need to be sure there won't be a new war in the next couple of years. In order to be able to make that credible, they need some reassurance, some guarantees. 95% of all of this is to keep Trump happy and keep a seat at the table.
That's all for now. For more content about Ukraine, please subscribe.